Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Welcome Change, Ashoka's weekly news series where we meet social entrepreneurs around the world and learn from them about what's working, what's next, and the role we can all play. I'm Shruti. I lead Ashoka in South Asia, and it is my absolute pleasure to be joined today by Brij Kothari, our Ashoka Fellow in India. Hi, Brij.
Hi. Hi, Shruti.
Hi. Bridge is the founder of Planet Read, an organization that pioneered the concept of same language subtitling to promote mass literacy. And it is fascinating how Bridge has taken India's love for Bollywood and turned watching films with subtitles into improving literacy across the world. And we'll spend the next half hour learning about his work. Once again, welcome, Bridge. I will run through a quick housekeeping before we jump right in for our conversation. So a quick run about the format. We'll have about 30 minutes together today. So Bridge and I will chat for the first 15-20 minutes, and then we'll turn to a few of your questions before we wrap up. So when you're curious about something, my request to you would be to please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And for this conversation, we also have American Sign Language translation for those who wish to access it. We will also have live captions or same language subtitles available for everyone too. You can access that as well via interpretation at the bottom of your Zoom screens. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's get started. Um, I think before we jump into the conversation, Bridge, I wanted our audience to sort of imagine for a moment that that you wake up one morning and you have one skill taken away from you, which is your reading skill, right? And you are unable to read anymore. And now imagine how the world has changed for you, right? And if you think about this, 600 million people in India alone are living this reality every single day of their life. So I'll give you a quick context, right? And India has made great strides in literacy from an 18.3% literacy rate at the time of independence to now about 80% literacy rate. But we also know that the quality of the literacy is inadequate, right? And estimated about 60%, which is 600 million people who are officially literate, are weak leaders. Additionally, about 250 million non-literates may also grow to become weak readers in the future, right? And if we look at the implications of that, we know that the weak readers are unable to read simple text, which makes ordinary tasks such as reading medical prescriptions or bus routes, signs, and other simple everyday tasks very challenging. And if we dig further into this, and you talk about this, Bridge, that 6 out of 10 or more of the weak readers are girls and women, right? For whom literacy is so much more than a skill. It is fundamentally about their dignity. Before we get into this conversation, Bridge, you have been working on a simple yet powerful idea, right? To give lifelong reading practice to 1 billion people. But before we go there, let's start with your journey. If you had to go back to 1996 or so, you are now an educator, a linguist who speaks 6 languages, a social entrepreneur who came upon subtitles as a window into something bigger. But help us connect these dots. Where did this all start?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. And hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. So, where did it start? It's difficult to say where it's actually started. I can talk about the idea where it started, but I think it really started in Ecuador for me when I was doing my doctoral dissertation research around indigenous people's knowledge of medicinal plants. And the idea was, how do we conserve that knowledge with the people, for the people? And then we kept hitting against this idea that, wow, it's not easy to document something if people have weak reading skills and literacy skills. So then we had to come up with our pictorial language, etc. So that's when my first rural immersion gave me some sense of how disadvantageous not having reading skills can be. So maybe that's where the idea kind of started to take shape subconsciously, perhaps. But then I was also learning Spanish to be able to work in Ecuador. And so then when I was writing my dissertation back in Ithaca, New York, I was watching Spanish film, Pedro Almodovar's Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. See it if you haven't seen it. It's a wonderful, funny film. But it had English subtitles, and I wanted Spanish subtitles on Spanish films to be able to catch the dialogue better and learn the language. And then at that point, it was a very casual thought. Why don't they put Spanish on Spanish and Hindi on Hindi in India, and all Indian languages, Tamil on Tamil, cinema, etc. And that might perhaps give millions, if not a billion, people reading practice on a everyday basis. And it seemed such an intuitive idea at that point in '96, but to my surprise, it had never been kind of explored, at scale anywhere in the world. There were small studies, perhaps, but it wasn't scaled up at the level that we were talking about. And so my first foray back in India was when I got the faculty position at the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad, was to really research this. And that's when the whole research journey started, from research to policy implementation. So now that's a 28-year span. So I'll stop and see where you want to take it next.
Thank you, Brij, for sharing that. It's always interesting to look back and sort of see your journey and how that pans out, right, and takes you where you really belong. I just want to delve deeper into the idea of same language subtitling, right? And I heard you say that it essentially means what you hear is what you read. But what does this really mean for reading literacy, for language development? And over the years in this 28-year-long journey of yours, what is the impact that you have seen through your, pretty much life's work in this area?
So, what does it mean for different people, right? When you have and your mainstream entertainment by default having the option of same language captions or same language subtitles, different things to different people. Let's start with the deaf and hard of hearing folk, right? Now it's given them access to media access to content that they didn't have access to. Of course, you can add Indian Sign Language as well in India, and American Sign Language in the US, etc. So that's a whole media access issue that we learned over time to embrace and work with as well. That's 80 million people in India, deaf and hard of hearing. So it's a large number. What we started off initially was, okay, how do we get today about 600 million weak readers without even thinking about it, become better and better and more and more fluent readers over time? It's a subconscious process. The brain does the association between sound and text. So if you're watching a film with same language captions or subtitling, automatically your brain is associating sound and text. Now imagine a child from class 1, when the letters are first introduced in school to many of them, but they remain weak readers, like not even able to read a class 2 level text in class 5, right? So they started getting behind in class 1 and class 2 and never caught up. Their entire education was compromised. And of course, the ability to then recover from that in life becomes very difficult. That scenario, imagine now where the class 1, they're watching the cartoon, they learn a few letters, they start looking for those letters on screen or wherever they see it, actually. So it's a lot of print exposure. So actually, every child will get so much exposure to the written word associated with sound. Now, these are children often growing up in homes where the parents can't read themselves or are weak readers. So they're not getting that kind of reading and literacy input that we kind of take it for granted in our homes, at least this audience does. So what we're saying is that if 1 billion people in India are getting reading practice every day, and they will get it for 70 years on the content they watch, they just cannot remain weak readers. because everybody's learning something in school and then it's getting practiced over time for that long. So that's a large number of people who are going to pick up reading skills and language skills. The other thing that it'll do is when we say, study after study, 50% of the children in class 5 cannot read at class 2 in India, right? We prevent that problem in the first place by having a child always constantly reading from class 1 itself, right? So that's a big, big, big contribution to both language learning as well as reading. And then the education builds off of that. I'll give you another way in which it empowers illiterate parents or weak reading parents. Often parents realize that their child is not reading when it's too late, in class 5, in the Indian context I'm talking about, because they don't have a way to judge often whether the child is actually reading. Now it's too late for them to do anything. But if they start observing the children, whether they're reading along to their favorite cartoon or not, they can observe that. Or they can even ask them, hey, can you just sing this song for me? Because the words are there on the screen. You will get an idea, the parents will. And then if they find that, hey, my child is actually falling behind, not reading in class 2 or 3 already, I might, as a parent, then go to the school teacher or the school system. So their agency is unleashed as well at a national scale. Now, I'm just talking about India, but clearly something like this, a solution like this probably has, a replication possibility in different countries on their content, of course.
Right. And it's fascinating how it has both the preventive and the remedial, sort of element to it, right? It's wonderful. And if I had to shift gears a little bit, and I know that you have been on this long journey to get systems to change, right? And congratulations on finally having a massive sort of policy breakthrough recently, right? And we know that the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting in India and the Central Board of Film Certification has now mandated same language subtitling for all films viewed across all platforms, right? Cinema halls, television, and OTT. Talk to us about how, what does this shift really mean for accessibility of all, and also, the force behind it, right? And I know that, there was a coalition of a few committed change makers, including you, who made this policy change a reality, right? So, just talk to us about this journey and what it really means for all of us.
Yeah. So let me just talk in essence, what is the system change that we are trying to cause or have caused now in policy, etc. When I say the word video, everybody knows it means audio plus visuals.
Right.
What we're saying is that the definition itself of professionally produced video should become audio plus visual plus text. So it should become AVT and not just AV. Okay. The idea being that the T stands for verbatim text with time codes, of course, of the video. Now, once you achieve that, today, none of the films, content on television or streaming are guaranteed in Indian languages to have this. The verbatim same language subtitle file with it. The change that we are causing now is a few things added. For example, a movie is a collection of files. What we're saying, there is audio, there is visuals. Now you add the same language subtitled file, which is with time codes, but you also add the audio description file, which is a second audio track to make it accessible to the visually impaired. And then you add a third, which is Indian Sign Language. A lot of deaf and hard of hearing people in India are demanding and asking their right that they would want as a video file. The idea is that you have all these elements as part of the film now. You can combine them as you want in the theater to personalize it, for example, to an individual or to the audience. You can personalize it in your on your streaming experience at home. So you decide which ones do you want. Now on linear television, it's a little harder to combine them, but even there you can actually combine. You can have the option of at least selecting the audio track and the subtitle track in the language you want. So at the minimum, what we're saying, we're not saying all language Indian language subtitles, because that the market takes care of. But interestingly, the market doesn't take care of same language captions, because they don't see a use for it, or they haven't so far. They see it with English. Strangely, this they see it on English content. Yeah, of course, we need English on English. That is a very, very self-centered view of English-speaking folk. In Indian languages, it doesn't exist. So only 3 or 4% of the content and streaming in Indian languages actually has that. So I often get this feedback, but it's happening, right? It's happening. And then you almost have to say, well, it's happening in English. And it's great and it's wonderful and it should happen. But how about the 23 official Indian languages and maybe even more? So that's the kind of system change we're talking about. Now, you referred to the coalitions that we're building. And yes, this is not a one organization effort or a one individual effort at all. For example, we moved for 25 years or so, based on evidence that, yes, this improves reading literacy skills. We moved the Ministry of Information Broadcasting to pass the accessibility standards for television. In 1 year, this just last year, we tied up with an organization called Mission Accessibility. And Mission Accessibility literally took this issue of rights of persons with disabilities in India, that they had a right to media access, and they took this whole issue to court. And we supported them with our evidence that actually it's not just for the people with disabilities, but it is actually for the hearing and the sighted also. In different ways, it's beneficial. What Mission Accessibility, led by Rahul Bajaj, he's a blind lawyer, Oxford educated, and 2 other co-petitioners who are blind, and 1 other co-petitioner who's deaf. 4 of them in the Delhi High Court, under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, challenged the biggest film producer, Yash Raj Films, and the biggest hit of 2023, Pathan, and said that we want to see Pathan, and we don't have these features in Pathan. Can Yash Raj Films provide that? Literally within the second hearing, the judge, she ruled that yes, this needs to be done, and Yash Raj Films was ordered to do it. And then the hearing kept becoming larger in scope, and then the judge said also that, hey, why not all films also? I mean, let's find a long-term solution for everything. And very thankful to the judge. I think I should even name her, Pratibha Singh, because she really did a landmark judgment on this over 6 hearings. So now all films in India have to carry accessibility features as part of the digital content package for that film. So 2,000 films a year at the time of certification will have these features. That is a massive breakthrough in 1 year. So sometimes, all the work you might have done for 25 plus years, and then the right coalition literally took that and used that as a springboard to take it to all films. And now the momentum is there. Hey, why not all streaming platforms also for Indian languages content should have this? And I think the Netflix and Amazons of the world have understood that, because now whenever they make original content in Indian languages, they automatically now put these features. But third-party content, which is most of the content that these streaming platforms host, do not have that feature. So we're really moving increasingly towards having that.
Yeah. It's fascinating. No, I was reading, and we were chatting the other day about the power of the coalition, and it's just fascinating on how much progress in such a short amount of period when so many like-minded mission-driven people sort of come together. And one of the things I've also heard you say, Brij, is that we're all on a spectrum, right? Of disability to ability, depending on the context we are in, or the life stage we are in, or the age we are on. how do we sort of then construct a new reality together, right? And what is the role of technology in that? And we know that technology can be an enhancer or a barrier, but how do you envision the role of AI and technology in your work to make all entertainment accessible and well integrated with, all relevant accessibility features?
Yeah, well, the point that we're all on the spectrum of ability and disability is absolutely correct. We will experience it at some point or the other, in sight or in hearing for sure. We might even know a parent or an elder person in our network who's already experiencing that. I know my dad would have loved to have same language subtitling on cricket that he loved to watch, but he didn't have that, right? So so we all know a weak reader in our family. We all know a non-reader in our family. We all know somebody who can't hear or can't see very clearly. So they need these. We need all of this. So it's the idea that it needs to be a universal design, and it's the global experience that anytime you create tools and technologies for people with other needs, you will automatically help everybody. And it's been proven over and over again, except that sometimes, when we're not experiencing certain disadvantages, we don't think about it. But I think we could be educated, all of us, to think about it and embrace it for ourselves also, not just for the other small slice is what we're thinking, which is not a small slice to begin with.
Right.
So that's now on the AI front that you asked, how do we see technology developing? Well, one of the key challenges we have is the operationalization of this idea that video will now have text. For example, all video will have text. Let's just take the case of new films, because that's an easier ask. Every film starts with a script. You just have to maintain that it stays verbatim all the way till the end. The moment you have a clean verbatim script of the film, today, by the way, it's not available in most Indian content. You have a 75% script, but you don't have a 100% verbatim script at the end, because people didn't see a use for it. But now we're saying that it's very useful. The moment you have that, you can literally do take a video, take that clean script, and produce an automatically subtitled with a simple tool that actually right now our engineers students at IIT Delhi are designing, for example, for us. Right? Not much AI even, except that you're doing some speech to text tools that already exist in Indian languages. But because you have the perfect script, it's just a matter of aligning it and giving the time code. Now take the large volume of existing content that doesn't have these scripts. There we need AI solutions for speech, Indian language speech to text, for the specific domain of films or television serials, etc. Right? So what we are doing now is creating absolutely clean data sets, which will then train the AI models to do speech and text. So, for example, for every Indian language, our estimation is that we need about 2,000 hours of well done same language subtitling that then trains the engine. And so all that data we're creating, but of course, the 2,000 hours that we do, we're not just going to do it for no return. What we're doing is that we are partnering with television channels. In their pipeline, there are programs, right, that are being broadcast. So, for example, in Punjab, we are taking Punjabi content, that's films, songs, etc., and we're subtitling those, and then those will go on air, and that clean data will then create the AI engine for speech to text for us, and we'll do this repeatedly for all Indian languages, so Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, etc. So it's a fairly straightforward playbook. The question is, can we execute it, in a relatively short time? We have given ourselves about 5 years, and we're very fortunate to have Co-Impact as a partner in this process to scale this up nationally.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I will move to the audience questions, and I can see a few questions coming in. Let me take this first one, which says, to what extent are working with media companies to drive accessibility, right? Who are the private sector partners for you? Who have you worked with? Those players who anticipate regulations because they understand what sort of resources their customers want. So really to understand who are the private sector partners that you're working with, and how are you building those relationships to make same language subtitling happen everywhere?
Yeah, our approach is system change, that it should happen, not necessarily that we should do it. Ideally, there is a policy now, and the television channels are actually quite capable of implementing it at quality, even if let's say we didn't exist, if they just implemented the policy. The tools exist in the market. So what's not happening yet is that television channels are still slow to embrace this. Now, some channels have started to embrace, like Star Network in India has embraced it, and on one of their very widely viewed program, Anupama in Hindi, which goes entirely to 40% of Indians. They're already doing really quality same language subtitling, and likewise other channels are also doing bits and pieces here, but they're supposed to do 50% of their content. All entertainments should have it. So that's the scale that where the tipping point is. So we are, what we do, the way we partner is that any channel, like in Punjab, I know we can talk about it because we have a very specific partnership. I just signed it today, an agreement with a Punjabi channel, PTC Punjabi, which is one of the biggest channels in Punjab. That we will do 100 hours of their content perfectly subtitled at quality. We will work with their processes so that they then do it on all the new content that they produce. And over time, we will give them technology tools. All the AI tools that we are developing are open source. So and as they do more and more, their tool will get better and better, and they can just embrace that. So we are acting like a catalyst, and partnering with different channels like this. Another partnership that is emerging for us is this company in Trivandrum, Toons, that has one of the biggest producers of animation in the country, actually. Now, on their content, we are actually about to make sure that our dream, like when they make an animation video, it has a same language subtitling and an audio description file as part of that content package, right? So then whichever channel licenses their content, so it's going to go to all the TV channels then. So and then for the film industry, again, the same thing. We are, all the big producers can actually do it, but if there are small to medium producers who need some technical help, we provide that at the beginning and then let them take over.
That's great. That's great. There is another, and congratulations on, it seems like a good day for all of us, right? Congratulations on the PTC agreement. There is another congratulatory message for you on the coalition and the policy breakthrough, and really asking you on the how, right? What was challenging? What were some of those roadblocks that you had to pass through to make the policy change happen?
So the challenge is, I think for 25 years, people didn't believe that something as simple as this could actually do something for reading literacy. It's interesting. I think most of the decision makers are already quite literate, and they don't necessarily see, this is a simple thing anyway, it happens, so what's the big deal, right? But not realizing that so many people can't. So the experience, so what now we're starting to do is that get the voices of people. As soon as we show them content with same language subtitles, they then talk about the benefits it has for education, and they see it immediately because it's something that they experience every day, not having enough reading resources in their language. So they right away see its educational importance. So we're trying to get that kind of evidence to policymakers. Academic articles don't go beyond a certain point, but actually these visuals speak much stronger in our case. So that's a mindset shift that took a long time. The other challenges, one big challenge actually was with the industry, the film industry and the entertainment industry. They resisted until it became policy. The moment it became policy, okay, now we got to do it. And now they're embracing it because now it's brand building. And this has played out in the US also. Some of you may know that in the 80s, Netflix was taken to court to have English subtitles on English content. And National Association for the Deaf in the US won that case, and Netflix was then ordered to do this, or settled to do this, English on English. Today, Netflix realizes English on English is a no-brainer. Their content has gone worldwide, and everybody, even in the US, even in the UK, 60-70% of the youth who speak absolutely fluent English still want English on English subtitles, because they're watching it in noisy environments. They want to catch the dialogue better. So now it's become a no-brainer. But the challenge is that it's interesting. We get it in English, but we don't see the value of it in other languages, which to me is a strange phenomenon among decision makers. That why would something that works so wonderfully in one language shouldn't work in other languages?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Once again, congratulations on, being able to sort of work through these challenges and, help us sort of make content accessible to all. I'll take this last question from the audience, and if there's time, I'll sneak mine in very quickly. Once you've achieved a point where India is sort of subtitling all its content, right? And there are 1 billion readers. What is your next goalpost? How do you sort of see your work evolve, Brij?
Yeah, we've given ourselves 5 years to make it happen in India on all content. And actually, a year ago, I would say that we won't get there, but now with the policy breakthroughs through the court supporting all of this legally, the courts behind us, in 5 years, we're going to do it in India, 1 billion. So now your question is, what do we do after that? Well, quality will be an issue that we will continue to monitor, continue to contribute. But we think that our experience is valuable in terms of taking it to other countries. And certainly, something that we would be very excited about is taking it to sub-Saharan Africa, where they have their own content in their own languages, and it should probably be subtitled in exactly those languages. Even if we just do Swahili, 200 million people will probably get reading practice right there. If we start taking one language after another, and depending on, and it's not like we need to go and do it there. It's just that we need to share our experience properly. I'm sure even government to government sharing of the experience may be important here, because governments do listen to other governments. So we will be playing that role of catalyzing, all the goodwill perhaps we might have built with the government to actually leverage that to, hey, why doesn't the Ministry of Information Broadcasting in India share its experience with the rest of the world? So that could be what we'll be doing for the rest of my life.
Wonderful. We are looking forward to seeing everything amazing that will continue to do. Lastly, if I had to ask you, and we learned so much from our Ashoka Fellows on how do you sort of tap into the power of everyone, right, to bring change. So if there was one advice that you had to give to the larger, Ashoka network and fellows on how do you sort of create the ability of making change in every human being on the planet, what would that be?
Oh, this is probably the most difficult question. I think I do see the power of making sure that everyone has an opportunity to make change in the world, right? So it has to start somewhere with minimum agency that everybody has growing up, and feeling like, hey, I can make a difference locally in my school, in my local park, etc. So I would just start with that curriculum where you've really seen and experienced and lived change making, even in small ways. How that adds up, how that clicks later on is something that could be unpredictable, but it happens all the time. I mean, usually every change maker, and I'm sure this the group here would have experienced a lot of people in their lives, siblings, parents, friends in college, etc., who inspired them, because they were all change makers, and it was almost like change making was the way to be. Otherwise, you're just not being, or you're just consuming, and in some other way maybe, but you're not contributing in some way or the other. And today, I think the youth, everybody wants to make a difference. That's very clear. So building that, but also, I think using our own network of change makers is something that at least I would like to do more of. And it's something that I realized, the power of coalitions. It seems the most obvious thing, of course, within the networks that we're familiar with, but also outside of those networks. But building those coalitions, I think, I would say is critical sometimes.
Thank you, Brij. On that note of change making being the only way to be, Brij, it has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you so much for your time, for discussing this, this important topic, and so timely, right? And thank you for helping us all see ahead. I think we've learned so much from you today. And thank you everyone for joining and sharing these great questions. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you, Brij.